BodyBags, where horror lies.
Roth from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe. I'm your regular Wednesday evening host here at BodyBags. It is a random week. It is an Aftershock type week. I actually did this review a couple weeks back, got ahead of myself a little bit. So looking out, this would be the week that precedes Theme Week, in which it's International Horror Volume 1. We all pick a country, region, and a film from that region. Moa's got Italy, and therefore I'll be looking at Bianchi's Burial Ground. Nice little revisiting there since the last time I watched it. Probably rented it on VHS back when I was a teenager, so I'm very much looking forward to that. Up on the docket, though, here is an Eli Roth written and produced production alongside director Nicolás López, if that's how you say it correctly. If not, I apologize. This film Aftershock came out in 2012, and I'll be honest, I completely let this one, in terms of just a production that Eli Roth is connected to, I let this one slip by. But Glenn, our Monday reviewer at BodyBags, was so kind to send a package to me for my birthday. This was in there. And so my wife and I watched this last night, and I mean, golly, we'll get into it. If not just quick, this is a perfect way to get into this, I guess. There is a quote I was thinking of when I started thinking about what I was going to say about this movie. And the quote, actually, funny enough, comes from The Mist. If you remember, the characters of Dan Miller, played by Thomas Jane, and Amanda Dunfrey, played by Laurie Holden, I think it was. Anyways, you'll probably remember the quote once I say it, but it strikes right at the heart of this movie, Aftershock, I think. Amanda says, you don't have... Oh, okay. Amanda says to Dan, you don't have much faith in humanity, do you? His reply, none whatsoever. She replies, I can't accept that. People are basically good, decent. My God, David, we're a civilized society. David responds, sure, as long as the machines are working and you can dial 911, but you take those things away, you throw people in the dark, you scare the shit out of them. No more rules. End of quote. I can't think of a better way to segue into the heart and soul of this film. It is what happens when the lights go out, the machine breaks down, and people are reduced quite quickly into their base level instincts. Thomas Jane's character from The Mist, Dan Miller, he's right, man. Now look, I mean, the lights can flicker and man's okay. Lights can go off for a little bit, man's okay. But you throw a disaster on top of that, and now you got widespread looting, acts of violence and depravity, and, you know, a good, a sort of a good film that shows man at his absolute worst, albeit an infection is the vehicle, and that is the sadness, right? But here is, Nicolás López is being helped out by Eli Roth in this production of a group of tourists, starred by Eli Roth as Gringo. Some friends who get caught up in a massive earthquake that hits Chile. They're in a nightclub, nightclub, when it hits. And from that point on, the earthquake itself is quite a disaster piece as everything just kind of crumbles in. It's actually quite terrifying. There was this film's ballsy for a few reasons in the end, which I won't even get into, but what a choice on that. But also to create a film about an earthquake in which Aftershock, not only do you have aftershocks post the actual quake, right? But we're talking about the aftershock also of what happens with man when he's left to his base instincts, call it, and the terror that can be incited by that. It's pretty ballsy to do a movie where, if it gets screen time in Chile, you got people who just survived an earthquake 2 years prior, and so this is probably a little bit of a sensitive topic, I would imagine, especially if you lost loved ones. But anyhow, the film itself, the whole first act really, and it takes a bit of time, is getting to know the characters. Maybe a little bit too much time. If there's one weakness of this entire film, it is, and I don't know how much falls by the writing, if not by the characters. I think what it is really is, it's not just that the characters or the actors are bad. I really don't think so. I think López is just trying to draw an extreme contrast between people who think of themselves as all of that, faced with a situation that lays them bare before the world, and they suddenly become extremely humble and realize that there are just some things that are a little bit more important than themselves. So I think really that's what López was, because if it's not that, then we just got some really questionable acting in the first act, which you really don't want if you're really setting up for you to care about these people. And quite frankly, I don't know how much. I mean, I'm thinking, looking back, but I'll say this: last night while my wife and I were watching this movie, I thought to myself occasionally, like, okay, when's this first act going to bleed into the second act? When is that quake going to hit? And when are we going to get really moving with some of the things that I'm assuming is coming down the pike? It's just, I don't know, it's weird. But the quake does hit. And I'll just say, Eli Roth, I don't know, his character is like the most front and center here in terms of, is this just questionable acting, or is this just a means of drawing a real contrast between the person now and the person that you'll see, heading into Act 3, in the midst of Act 2 into Act 3. And so it's interesting. The terror of the quake itself is quite amazing and terrifying. I would not want to be anywhere where an earthquake like this hits. I don't know what I would be more freaked out by, the quake itself or the aftermath, knowing full well if you're in a bad place. Think about an anthill that just gets stepped on, right? This is a city, right? I know I live at the base of one here in Atlanta, Georgia. And if something really, really bad ever were to happen, you think of some of the aerial shots from World War Z, we would not have much reaction time to hit the highway and go. Thankfully, I do live on the outskirts, so if I had enough warning, maybe I'd have enough time to get out ahead of the tsunami, if you call it that, wave that I'm sure would be coming. So it's a little scary to live even on the outskirts of a city. And so there is a lot of, I'll get into this though. I'll say this, our character, Ariel, there's three, Gringo, Ariel, and Paulo. They're the three friends, and they meet the two girls. They're twin sisters. I think they're twins. Maybe they're not twins, but Monica and Kylie, I think that's her name, who have a friend in Irina, who is a Russian, I think. And not something really bad is going to happen to Irina, which is really messed up, which leads to Paulo having to make a decision to do something that you can see quite easily goes against the nature of who he is. This is not the kind of act he would commit himself to, but a lot of emotions and anger are rising up in him that lead him to this act. Yeah, where was I? I kind of lost my train of thought here. Let's just okay, so just a real quick overview without, the hand, yes, Ariel. The hand. I will get into that. I'm not really going to get into spoilers per se in terms of the end. I'm going to leave that completely alone. But I do want to touch on the hand, because that was a weird scene. So Ariel, in the midst of the quake in the nightclub, he's trying to help someone, ultimately loses his hand. His hand goes flying. onto the floor, and people are panicking and trying to run, and so his hand gets kicked all over the place. I was tossed, man, like a boat in a bad storm, man. I mean, 1 second I'm feeling really freaked out for him, like he's terrified, he's terrified, he wants his hand back. At the same time, I'm thinking to myself, am I supposed to be laughing here? Is this supposed to be some sort of weird comic relief moment where like people are kicking the hand around? And I don't know, I kind of got lost in that one scene for a minute, not sure exactly, and that doesn't happen to me often. I generally get what we're supposed to be feeling, but in this particular case, I was a little, I don't know, it's just a weird scene. I mean, you can feel for him, obviously, and you can take it as a moment of just absolute that would be terrifying for anyone. What is it like to lose a part of your body and you can see it's still there? Obviously, I would imagine you'd want it back pretty quick, regardless of whether or not you can put it back on or not, right? You would want it. And so, so you got the massive quake. It's not long before you hear the alarm for the tsunami alarm. And I will say that moment is really, it kind of take you back to The Mist when the town alarm is going off. If done right, those moments can be really eerie, man. And it is in this one for sure, because you've just been in the midst of a massive quake and you see all the terror that is, and now suddenly you've got the threat of something else coming. And so, in very quick order, we go from this sort of maybe longer than it needed to be first act into a second act where things are just exploding all over the map, and then becomes really ultimately the bleed into the third act, which is you got to get from the nightclub. A cleaning lady leads. I'm just thinking what happens to the cleaning lady. It's not funny, but she takes our heroes through a tunnel, and ultimately that leads outside to a city street. And earlier in the film, they were visiting a cathedral, and we're told that underneath there are tunnel networks, which is a foreshadow towards the end of the film. And we're told something really, really, really frightening, that apparently babies that are born out of wedlock, I think it involved priests, these babies were just put, buried, I guess, killed, put under in the tunnel networks of this church, catacombs-like, and you get to see that at the end, because once you get up to the city streets, now it's about making your way back to the cathedral, because it's been said to you that there are tunnels that you might be able to access that might be able to get you completely out of this situation, right? But once you're at topside, or once you're on the city streets, we're told a prison has basically broken, and prisoners are loose, very violent prisoners. And there's more than one twist in this movie that is interesting. I won't say what it is. And there's one in particular that I kind of saw coming. I kind of saw. There was another one I totally didn't see coming at all, period. And when it hit, I guess I should have, but I guess I was enjoying the movie too much. Anyways, I'm going too long. A huge number of these actors are going to be with Eli the very next, right from this production into the production on The Green Inferno. I'm looking, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 right there on my cast list. 4 that will be with him in The Green Inferno. There's a scene involving a cable tram that is just absolutely, well, it's a two-parter, actually. It's a little foreshadowment there as well. You kind of wonder, are we going to come back to this cable tram? And they do need to, because they got to get their buddy not Paulo, but Ariel, who's lost the hand and is bleeding out. They need to get him up to the top of the hill where there is a hospital. And that, I'll just say that goes completely bad. The cleaning lady, who leads them to the city street, her fate is insane. I mean, I'll just say I was on the couch and both me and my wife were like, no! I mean, it was just like, wow. The helicopter shots, no permits apparently. I've heard that before, right? Italian filmmaking, guerrilla filmmaking. The bulk of the effects are practical, and there's some good effects, man. Some really, in fact, there's a one involving a fire burn that is quite stomach. It is a little queasy. It made my stomach just a little queasy, kind of seeing it. It wasn't a bad effect. It was pretty darn good, actually. The whole cemetery scene at the end, going underneath the tunnels, is really, really good. And then that leads us out to our very end. Our cinematographer would move right from Aftershock with Eli to shoot Green Inferno. And the guy, the other guy the Nicolás López, the director here, wrote the screenplay for Eli's film Knock Knock. So a lot of back and forth here, working together relationships. Final thoughts, Aftershock, it's got to be seen, man. You've got to see this movie. If you're a sucker for disaster flicks with an insane ending and some really good practical effects, and whatever you might think of the first act, get through it, the disaster itself, and its ride to the end. This was quite a ride, I'll say. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else this guy might do. Nicolás López might do down the road here. So anyways, wow, Aftershock. Get ready for International Horror Volume 1 next week. As always, go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream.
We might be useful to